Right to me? Yeah. Right, Stevie? Councillors, I might ask you to take your seats. Now, please, we might start tonight's meeting. Thank you. I welcome everyone into the gallery tonight and the press to the council meeting, and remind you that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed to council's Facebook and YouTube pages. I would ask everyone to please turn all mobile phones to silent as I check my own. Please be aware that the hearing lip is available in the council chamber. Staff members are able to assist you with this at any time during the meeting. Please remain quiet in the gallery so that everyone can hear the meeting. Anyone disrupting the meeting may be asked to leave. I would also like to remind members of the public watching the live stream that a copy of the agenda and information explaining council meetings can be found on the council website. Tonight you will see that we have 17 reports in open council and 0 in closed council, a transparency rate of 100%. I'll now move to reading of the prayer, and I would ask everyone to please stand while I call upon Pastor Graham Shand of Casey Life Church to read the prayer.
Let's pray. Gracious God, we thank you for answering the many prayers that have been brought before you as the council meets each fortnight. We thank you also for the many people who give of their time in support of those who live in this city. We pray for your ongoing strength and enabling for the work that they do. As the council meets tonight, we pray that you will grant clear wisdom in strategic planning as the population of the city continues to increase and as new families move into the city each week. We pray for your guidance as decisions are made concerning the infrastructure and services provided to each suburb and ward. We pray your blessing on tonight's meeting. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Graham. Please remain standing while I call upon Elizabeth Lapierre from the Casey Multi-Faith Network to read the faith statement.
The Casey Multi-Faith Network exists to promote peace, harmony and understanding, and to do so in partnership with Casey Council and the wider Casey community. We aim to spread knowledge and clarity about what different religions or worldviews believe, teach and practice. We believe that all members of religions and faith have the right to peacefully practice and celebrate their own religion in a shared attitude of friendly coexistence and cooperation with all other peoples. Gracious God, we ask you to give your blessing to this council, guiding us so that the decisions we make might truly be for the well-being of the people of the city of Casey.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Please be seated. The City of Casey acknowledges that we're on the traditional land of the Bunurong and Wurundjeri people and pays respect to all elders past and present. I'll move now to apologies. Are there any apologies tonight? I'd like to move that Councillor Sam Aziz is an apology along with Councillor Miller-Gillich, and a leave of absence be granted for those two apologies. Seconded by Councillor Rowe. Any dissent? And that is carried. Thank you. Now move to suspension of local law. Is there a mover and seconder to move to the suspension of local law until I determine to reapply local law? Moved by Councillor Stapleton, seconded by Councillor Flannery. Is there any dissent? That is carried. I'd now like to call upon Councillor Flannery to talk about the Casey North Information Service.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I just want to just briefly make a comment about an interaction I had with a person outside of the City of Casey. They contacted me by phone today and asked me what sort of services do we provide for young people. They said that this young person is a little bit lost, suffers anxiety, has no confidence, and do we provide a service? And I said, yes, we do. I'm pretty sure we can find something for them. I then rang the Casey North support services, and I made a phone call, and they took the details down. They said they'll get a social worker to contact the person. Within a half an hour, I got a contact from the person that contacted me originally, and said that social worker has made contact with the young lady, and she has an appointment next Tuesday at their venue in Narre Warren. I'd just like to say that this shows the reason why we support the Casey North Support and Information Service for the work that they do. They realise that when people are in need, they step up and they show their support for vulnerable people. And I just like to say that it's a job well done for the Casey North Support and Information Services, and I couldn't be prouder for the information that they provided. And as I said, I was actually absolutely chuffed that within a half an hour that we've got a result to get this young lady some help. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery, and on behalf of everyone here in the whole room and the City of Casey, thank you, Councillor Flannery, for doing that for the young lady and getting her help and expressing that tonight. So it's really great positive news. It's a great story to tell us all. So thanks very much for that. I'd now like to involve... Sorry. Oh, sorry, Councillor Saray.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to add to Councillor Flannery's suspension of local law that the Casey North Information Support Service is actually having a food drive and a coat drive. So if anyone is able to assist them, this is a perfect example of how they help people, and if the community gets behind them, they can help many more people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Saray, for informing us of that. I will now like to present to Councillor Flannery a certificate which was sent down by Graham Quirk, who is the Lord Mayor of Brisbane, and Councillor Flannery was up there, paid his own way up there and made his way and had a chat to the Mayor, and we look forward to the great ideas that you both spoke about and we may be able to implement here. So we have the official letter of gratitude sent down by the Lord Mayor of Brisbane to your good self, and I'd like to present that to you tonight. Councillor Flannery wishes to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I won't hold you up too long. What actually how I got to speak to the Mayor is that I was up there for the Queen Baton Relay, and it come through the city of Brisbane, and I went down to where they were having their celebration, and I asked the security if I could speak to the Lord Mayor and pass on our gratitude from the City of Casey. Which he replied, "You can't do that." And I said, oh, "Yes, I can." So what I did is when I saw the Mayor of Brisbane, I actually pulled out one of my business cards, first time they've ever worked, and he come down and had a 5-minute chat with me, and I congratulated him on the Queen's Baton Relay being in the city of Brisbane, and on behalf of the City of Casey, I said a job well done. So, even though I was up there for seeing my twin brother, I actually was up there also representing the City of Casey. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. I'd now like to ask two very fantastic community people who run the Turning Point Church, Phil and Norma Kaiser, if they wouldn't mind coming and standing in front of our flags over here, because we're going to do something and get a photo of you both in a moment with all the councillors. Last Sunday was a Thanksgiving Day for the Turning Point Church, and I was lucky enough to represent all the workers and staff and councillors from the City of Casey, and the day was about thanking the City of Casey for all the stuff, the good things that the City of Casey do, and I was very, very honoured and touched to be acknowledged on behalf of everyone, and it's nice to be recognised. And I just thought I would recognise the Turning Point Church services that they do. Every time you go out there, they're doing wonderful, wonderful things. They have an emergency relief centre. They have free brunch for people. They have a community garden plots, free community lunches, support counselling services, whether that be financial or someone who's become homeless or someone who has an issue that they need professional help with. They also provide childcare. They also have connect groups that connect different groups to engage them in the community, a Renaissance music team, a youth program and children's club called Stripes, amongst other things, and the Christian college connected with the church, the Lighthouse Christian College, has some of the highest academic results compared to other schools in Australia. So doing an unbelievable job, and I'm very thankful and grateful tonight to be able to, on behalf of the Turning Point Church and Norma and Phil, who do an outstanding job, to present to every councillor a certificate on behalf of the Turning Point Church. And as I'll stand out the front and hand them out, and we'd like to get a group photo with Phil and Norma, if that's okay, and hand out everyone a certificate, which we are so grateful for. So if we could all councillors could come out the front, please. Thank you for that, councillors, and Norma would like to say just a few words from the podium out the front. Thanks, Norma.
The Women's Day. Pardon? The Women's event.
So this was part of our celebration of the Australian National Day of Thanks, which this idea was birthed in 2003 and then officially launched. Can you hear me okay? Is it on?
Yes.
Yeah, then officially launched at Government House 11th of February 2004 by John Howard when he was in governance as a Prime Minister. So it's a National Day of Thanks, and National Day of Thanks is a unique opportunity for Australians to celebrate, give thanks to God for the nation we live in, and it's also a day for Australians to pause as a nation and to say thank you to the many people and organisations who volunteer their time and do many things we often take for granted, those things that really make our lives worth living and enrich our community. So this year for the National Day of Thanks, the focus was on people who contribute in a positive way to the vibrant cultural tapestry of Australia. So who better than to choose the City of Casey councillors, because we know that this is one of the most diverse cities and councils in the whole of Australia, yes, with multiculturalism. So we chose the Casey councillors who lead in this culturally diverse area of Casey. And so we wanted to thank you and thank the City of Casey councillors for their service, their sacrifice, their leadership, their availability, their diligence, their wisdom and their care in governing our City of Casey. We thank you for the time you take to connect with individuals and organisations like ourselves. There are many times when Jeff and Amanda and others have come to be at official events and to bless particularly our emergency relief clients with your presence, to give an ear, to show them that you care and that you're there. And we thank you for that. And we really appreciate that you listen and you work together to make this a great city to live and work in. So we thank you once again for all your service to us.
Thank you, Norma. Thank you, Norma and Phil and the great team out there, and we look forward to having a continued close relationship with the Turning Point Church. So thanks very much for that. I now determine the local law reapplied. Is there a mover and seconder to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on Tuesday the 15th of May? Moved by Councillor Flannery, seconded by Councillor Rowe. Is there any dissent? That is carried. Thank you. Declarations of interest. Are there any councillors who wish to declare a conflict of interest for tonight's meeting? There are none. I will move now to officers' reports. And these are reports that will be withdrawn for further discussion. We'll start off with Councillor Saray.
6.1, thank you.
6.1. Councillor Smith.
4 and 11.
Thank you. Councillor Rosario.
6.3, please.
6.3. Councillor Jackson.
6.5, Mr. Mayor.
6.5. Is there a mover and seconder to adopt the recommendations listed in...
Mr. Mayor.
Sorry? Councillor Stable, my apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that late runner. Item 6.7 and item 6.8, please.
Yep. My apologies, I did have them on my list, but sorry about that.
That's good.
Is there a mover and seconder to adopt the recommendations listed in the officers' reports that have not been withdrawn for further discussion as follows? 6.6 and 6.9, 6.10, 6.12, 6.13, 6.14, 6.15, 6.16, 6.17. Have a mover. Moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Flannery. Is there any dissent? Then that is carried. We'll move now to public question time. Are there any public questions tonight, Ms Frost?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there were some public questions received after the deadline for submission, and officers have been in contact with the submitters to engage with them on their concerns and provide them responses.
Thank you, Ms Frost. We'll move now to officers' reports which have been withdrawn for discussion. Item 6.1, the Victoria Cross Australia Remembers Book Launch. Councillor Saray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could I please move that recommendation in my name?
Moved and seconded by Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Firstly, I'd like to thank all the councillors who supported the initial motion in November to consider this event being at Bunjil Place. When meeting with Michael Madden, the author of the book, in last year in November at Remembrance Day, and telling me how he was going to do this book launch at the MCG, which would have been an amazing event. But when speaking to him on more of a regular basis and convincing him that he should consider doing it Bunjil Place, and that's where this motion was born, and it now ended up being at a fantastic event. That photo is actually, sorry, if you just go back one more, that's Keith Payne, who's one of only 4 VC recipients that are actually alive at the moment, which is great. As stated in the report, there was a massive positive feedback for the event, both through the City of Casey but also TPI, which is an organisation that all the money from purchasing this book will actually go to for permanently incapacitated veterans. On the 21st of April, it was my honour to welcome 35 VC families who attended the City of Casey. These families came from across the state, across the country and even internationally. Now that is a real VC medal on the right-hand side, and that's me touching $1.5 million worth of metal that I was very scared to touch, but that's how much that medal's worth, $1.5 million. When arriving to Bunjil Place that morning, I didn't expect to see so many decorated veterans and their families. It was very emotional and heart-lifting. Now, that's Daphne, her husband was a VC recipient, and she's 98, and they came from Sydney to come to the event, which is an amazing testament to the City of Casey. Secondly, I'd like to thank all the officers for their enthusiasm and helpfulness throughout the whole event.
It's like Prince Charles.
It is Prince Charles.
Oh.
Finally, I'd like to acknowledge our local resident, Michael Madden, the author of the Victoria Cross Australia Remembers, for his hard work and dedication to our nation's most valorous servicemen. Interesting to note, as the picture says, the special edition of this book, because there's two purchases that you can make, the regular $80 one, and then there's the more expensive one. So the first edition went to Queen Elizabeth, the second, and the second went to Prince Charles, as that picture shows there. That was last week, just before the royal wedding. We should be so proud as the City of Casey to have hosted this once-in-a-lifetime event, and I'm so grateful for the community for supporting me and getting this event to Bunjil Place. Just as a final note, today Councillor Flannery and I presented this book with the author Michael Madden at Fountain Gate Secondary College, where this legacy will continue, as it should for every school, and I encourage every school to do so. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Councillor Soraya. Are there any questions or dissent? Question?
Just an aware, Mr Mayor, sorry, I won't take long. That last photo was of Councillor Soraya and myself today. That was in appreciation of the Anzac Day memorial service that they did at Fountain Gate Secondary College, and I just wanted to give back to the school and say thank you for the amazing job that they did for putting on the Anzac Day memorial. And with Councillor Soraya, we donated the book to them, and they were absolutely ecstatic and over the moon, and they really appreciated it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Any other questions or dissent? Then that is carried. Thank you very much. 6.2, Casey Cardinia Library, Draft Library Plan. Councillor Smith.
Mr Mayor, I'll move the recommendation, page 6, please.
Second by Councillor Rosario.
Councillor Rosario and I are on the board, and we're very pleased to move this motion. I'm very honoured this year to be the chair. Councillor Rosario 2 years ago. So, sorry? And you're an alternate delegate. A couple of things to point out, councillors, because I know you've read it. I don't need to even try and tell you what's in it, because you all read it. I should ask you questions, Councillor Flannery, in a minute. But it talks about the draft library plan. It talks about the future of the whole report. Talks about the future of the library. We are one of the leanest and meanest. No, meanest, not meanest. We are the leanest operations in library. We're one of the biggest library corporations in the state, but we're also one of the leanest in terms of our operating costs. So we're very proud of that. And if you go into any of our 5 branches in Casey and plus Cardinia, the mobile library, and their branches, it's not what you expect, and probably it's going against the trend of what people think libraries should be doing or are doing around the country and around the world. Our borrowing rates are still growing. Bunjil has certainly been a very welcome addition to the branches, and we know the visitation of the Bunjil Library has been enormous and way above expectation, and it's continuing on that trajectory, which is fantastic. The budget is, as I said, is quite lean. It's been well considered by the staff and by the board and our community consultation. And councillors, I can't really say much more other than if you've read the report, you'll see what a great organisation this is, that and we should, both Casey Council and Cardinia Council should be very proud of.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Are there any questions or dissent on the matter? Then that is carried. Thank you. Item 6.3, Hampton Park Central Development Plan and Community Precinct Master Plan. Councillor Rosario.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that in my name, please.
Seconded by Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor and Councillor Smith. very excited to put this one forward, Mr. Mayor. This is the Hampton Park Central Community Precinct Master Plan, as well as the Hampton Park Central Development Plan. And I have to thank council officers and the community for their work and tireless work on this. This has been a long time coming, as well as the patience that goes with planning very strategically the future of Hampton Park, which we're aiming for a very bright one, Mr. Mayor. These two pieces of work are to kickstart the renewal of Hampton Park Central. So it's a major, it's been deemed by the Victorian Planning Authority as a major activity centre, which is a higher status than just a regular activity centre. And so, notwithstanding all that, so council's own land, we're leading by example, Mr. Mayor. So we are looking at our community precinct and what we can do to really pull that forward into the future with renewal. And so that is a very exciting plan that we're putting forward. And the second one being the Hampton Park Central Development Plan is talking more about the wider aspects of the Hampton Park Central itself. So we're looking at two different things, but one does fit into the other. So the master plan proposes a new community hub which will go a long way to meeting community needs and making sure our diverse community has the services it needs into the future. A key component of council's vision is identifying the need for a main street. So that's been discussed for many years, but a main street we've been considering as part of the plans because it will activate shops that can be along the main street and make it a place where people can walk and enjoy themselves and interact, have a coffee, have a meal. And it's that very modern type of feel, Mr. Mayor. Doing things like that, revitalising, that will uplift the community, and that's our aim of this master plan, the very beginnings of where we'd like to be later on. So the vision has been developed in consultation with the Hampton Park Progress Association and the Hampton Park Community House. I believe some people from the representatives from the Hampton Park Progress Association and maybe as well the Community House are here tonight, and I acknowledge your presence and thank you for your support as well. The next steps, Mr. Mayor, are to consult with the landowners and the broader community. So this is what the public exhibition will be about. But Councillor Smith and I, as well as council officers, we are engaging with the landowners to, as well, work with them so that we can all realise the dream together of upgrading the area and to do that in partnership where it makes a lot of sense to build it together. And so we're doing that. And we are building closer relationships as well. We are working in partnership with the state and federal government representatives as well, bringing them part of that journey. Because council cannot fund this project on its own, but what we do is we can obviously put our contribution in and work with the other levels of government to get a really great result for Hampton Park. So with that said, Mr. Mayor, I will leave it there. I do commend this, both plans to the Chamber, and once again I do thank the Hampton Park Progress Association, Hampton Park Community House and other groups who have consulted with our officers who have done an amazing job, and I really thank Nicola, Adam, Asok and the team for what they've done over the years. And with that said, I also encourage our residents, once this goes to public exhibition, Hampton Park residents, please do give us your thoughts, because the more we get about what you want to see and how you feel about the area and what you want to get out of this, the better. And together we can make a brighter future for Hampton Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rosario. Any questions or dissent on the matter? And that is carried. I understand there are quite a few people from Hampton Park here who came for that particular item. I'd like to move a 1-minute adjournment. Someone could second it. Well, maybe people from Hampton Park would like to leave, or you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. Do you have an indication of those who from Hampton Park who here would like to leave?
They're enthralled. There's nothing on TV.
Well done, Mr. Mayor. There won't be an adjournment. We'll keep going. Item 6.4, the Councillor Smith.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move the recommendation, please.
Seconded by Councillor Cristani.
Unfortunately, Councillor Aziz couldn't be here because otherwise he'd be doing this, so I'm sort of going to be doing this on the hop. I believe there's a bit of a slideshow as we go. But Council has led a business delegation and two Casey soccer representative teams to Sichuan in China in April this year. And the intention was to strengthen the relationship between the Chengdu region and Casey to enhance economic cooperation, promote trade and boost tourism and education. So the visitation achieved great results. We signed memorandum of understanding of friendly partnership cooperation with both Duzhijiang, I always get that wrong, but that'll be as good as I can get it out, and Mianyang City. And both agreements seek to work in partnership in the area of business, culture, tourism and education whilst promoting each other's cities to enhance mutual development and prosperity. So the business delegation had multiple opportunities to meet with government officials from both sides, or both cities, including representatives of the Australian government and the business representatives that we took over with us. And we took representatives from Chisholm TAFE, and the Royal Botanic Gardens. And we were very lucky. I spent a day with the Royal Botanic Gardens delegation on their official business when they met with the botanical gardens from Chengdu. And that was a real eye-opener. I'm not a gardens person, but I certainly learnt a lot that day. And I think talking to the director of the Cranbourne Botanical Gardens, he can already see the potential in what they've learnt from the representatives from our gardens that went there. And the potential, the Chinese were very keen to establish relationships with the Royal Botanic Gardens, and they could see lots of potential. And I think there's already an agreement unofficially between the two gardens to assist each other in producing an English document for the Chengdu Gardens and a Chinese document for the Australia Gardens. So, you know, that's a great outcome just from there. But they were certainly pleased with the gardens were very pleased with the outcome of their part of the delegation. And Chisholm TAFE, I spoke to the director of Chisholm TAFE just recently, and they can see great potential in the relationship between City of Casey and Chengdu in Sichuan. Sorry, in terms of international students, Chisholm going over there and running programs, because there's certainly a need for in certain industries for foreign countries, foreign institutions to go to China and teach their courses. So they see huge benefit, and in the future we hope Federation Uni will jump on board and do the same. So the photo show, we might just skip through it and we'll see what's there. Our soccer games, this was the first soccer game. We drove into this place not knowing where we were going, and we pulled into this huge, absolutely huge stadium. We thought we must have been in a university, but it turned out it was a high school. And I just happened to say, well, how many kids go to this high school? You know, being 1,000 is probably pretty normal for a Casey high school or thereabouts. And they said, we have 9,000 students. And I said, where are they all from? And they were from all over the country. It was a rural high school, so every student was a boarder. So 9,000 students boarding on the site. So that explained all the multi-storey buildings, which turned out to be dorms. And the kids come from Monday to Friday and go home to their country rural villages on the weekend. So a huge thing. Absolutely loved having our Casey teams there. There was lots of really good exchanges between the two countries, and the Chinese girls going absolutely crazy over our Aussie boys, and lots of exchanges of emails and etc. So it was pretty impressive. Our boys were pretty overwhelmed by it all. In fact, they were in shock. We'll keep going. We visited lots of businesses, and that was the school. We'll keep going because I think I was very pleased. The mayor wasn't able to. Councillor Aziz wasn't able to be there for this part of the tour. And we signed with Richard Wynne. You'll see him in the background. The Victorian Government Minister Richard Wynne was there for our signing because it was a pretty significant
20
event.
seconds. You want an extension?
Yes, probably better. I'm not sure
2
what's
minutes?
coming up. Yep.
I'll move it. Second by Councillor Rosario. Any dissent? That's carried.
You.
Continue on.
We'll keep moving. I'm not sure what's coming up. And the Australian Consulate, Christopher Lim is the Consul General for Australia, Just an unbelievable representative of the Australian government and a huge advocate for the city of Casey. What we are doing over there, he is just totally 100% behind, and on both occasions we've been with him, he just drops everything to spend time with us and our delegation and to encourage us to keep going. And I think he has said that we're the only Australian city to have to get involved in such a way and to have success so quickly. So good endorsement. More soccer teams. We went to. This was at a huge soccer facility. No pavilions. This was a training facility and practice facility. But again, our kids got matched. Our girls, who were all about 15, 16-year-old, played an under 22, I think it was, team. Didn't win, as you'd expect, because of the age difference, but the quality of play was pretty impressive, and they were playing against a Chinese rep team. This is the Lantern Festival. Yeah. That's their factory where they make things. We were there just before they were about to start building their next... the facility was fairly empty, but we got to see them making some of the things that they were doing for other... Because they produce these sort of structures for all around the world, not just China, and they hope that they'll be able to put on a similar event in Casey for us. The Australian Milk Bar, the Aussie Milk Bar is, I think, going to have huge potential for Casey in terms of they want to partner with businesses in Casey to produce their powdered milk in Australia for export to China. That's great. Australia is the flavour of the month. Anything that's got Australian on it is big business. And I think we're just about...
You are.
And this was an event that Councillor Aziz went to afterwards.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
I think we're done.
Are there any questions or dissent on the matter? That is carried. Thank you. Item 6.5, consideration of submissions to Amendment C198 to the Casey Planning Scheme, Casey Housing Strategy. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move that in my name.
Moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Saray.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you to, I know, the many residents that are in the gallery in relation to this amendment tonight. Mr Mayor, this is the largest amendment that Council at Casey has ever undertaken, and it was no mean feat. There were over 321 submissions to Council, some in favour, some against of the amendment, and the officers have worked diligently through all of that, as well as there's been a number of meetings between Council officers and councillors and residents of the community as well. Mr Mayor, the amendment is designed and targeted for growth in particular areas close to shopping centres or transport, and in a lot of cases, Mr Mayor, the current amendment essentially provides one additional story to what is already normally there. Mr Mayor, what will be happening though is the decision will now be going to an independent planning panel, and for everyone listening and for all the residents as well, you will have the opportunity at the independent planning panel to make your submissions to that panel as well. That panel will then bring back its findings to Council. So that's another opportunity, Mr Mayor, for the community to engage and provide feedback, and providing feedback to an independent panel that's arranged by the Minister for State, and Council has no involvement of who sits on that panel. Finally, Mr Mayor, I really want to thank Nicola Ward and the entire city planning team. This has been, no doubt, one of the biggest things that they have ever undertaken, and I know every question that I've ever had for them, they've come back with a quick and fast response. Mr Mayor, I commend this to the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. I have a question, perhaps Officer Ward might be able to answer it, I'm not sure. There's probably people in the gallery who might want to know the information on when the panel sits, when submissions would need to be in, etc. What's the timeline on all of that?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I can't recall the dates exactly of the panel, I'm sorry. It's probably in about 6 to 8 weeks from memory, but we can make that available on the website. Residents don't need to make any further submissions. What happens is that we take the submissions that have been made and we hand them to the panel, so the panel can give due consideration to those submissions that have been already made. So all submissions that have come in will be automatically handed on to the panel? That's correct, yes.
So if anyone's already put one in, who's sitting in the gallery tonight, their submission will be automatically passed on?
By the planning panel, that's correct.
And if someone hasn't, they have an opportunity to put one in?
Yeah, we're happy to take later submissions.
Would they send that to us?
You'll have to stir.
Yes.
Okay, to Council if you have a submission that needs to go to the panel. And we will put the information on our website.
Yes.
And under what heading would that be?
There's an area under the website which has all the strategic planning amendments. And
Under
we'll
strategic
make
planning.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Saray.
Oh, yeah, mine.
Well,
Just a question to Ms Ward. The submitters, do they have the opportunity to verbally speak to the panel as well and make their submissions verbally to the panel?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes. If a person wishes to make a representation to the panel, they're allowed to do so, and they'll receive information associated with how they go about doing that.
Thank you.
And they'll be able to get all that information under strategic planning from our website.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So are there any... Oh, Councillor Saray, my apologies. There you go.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to, do a quick Are You Aware? Thank you to all the residents who contacted, I'm going to speak for myself and Tim, in the Edrington ward about this, because we had a lot of rezonings in our ward in particular. But I'd also like to thank the residents of Gloucester Avenue. If you look on map 9, that you'll see that your opinion was heard and there is an appropriate change to what we discussed about. Thank you.
Well done, Nicole.
Thank you, Councillor Saray. Are there any questions or further questions or dissent on the matter? And that is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will ask, can I have an indication from the gallery of all those who came for that particular item who may wish to leave now? Could I ask for a 2-minute adjournment to the meeting while they leave? Can I have a seconder, please?
Yep.
Seconded by Councillor Smith. Any dissent? That is carried. We'll have a 2-minute adjournment. Thank you.
I've got a flag.
It's an absolute film in itself. What I'm learning, planning, even from discussions I've had with you and development. It's so complicated. Yeah. And there's specialties within that. Yes. She might not want to vote for something.
Yeah, sorry.
The microphone's always on.
Yeah, absolutely. What's hard because it was in the back, it wasn't attached.
And in the first document, it actually still had the...
Yeah. You've got no councillors. You can't have the meeting. You have quorum.
Right, councillors, we might take our seats, please, and resume our meeting. I think we're missing a few councillors.
We need one more. Rex,
We
sit
don't
down.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have. Okay, we'll resume our meeting now with item 6.7, Councillor Stapleton, South Gippsland Highway, Cranbourne.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. If I could move that recommendation with an additional dot point, please. And if you could say, Council report back on the Pedestrian Maze, MAZE, once a solution has been achieved, and when I say report back, I mean by a report, just a brief one, nothing too complicated. So I'd like to move that in my name, please.
Seconded by Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Could I start off by thanking the officers, Mr Griffin and his team, for doing some very, very quick work in this area. Councillors, just briefly, last time I presented some photos and it was in relation to difficulties accessing what's called a pedestrian maze at the Cranbourne Railway line at the station there, and that part of the line is no longer used. More's a pity, but it's not. Difficulties being experienced with people with prams, mobility vehicles like your little motor buggies and wheelchairs. And when I actually went out there, it was incredible. You couldn't have set this up if you tried, but we had someone turn up with a motor scooter with a canopy, and he's the gentleman that is having difficulty in accessing that maze. And then another gentleman turned up, another motor scooter, and a mum turned up with a double pram. And that was just priceless for me because it really showed how difficult that area was. And just down from there was a section of footpath. For some reason it's not there, and that's causing all sorts of problems for the same kinds of prams and vehicles. So it's fantastic. We're going to replace the footpath, and I would ask Mr Griffin if we know roughly what month that might be that we replace it, because winter time is the time that they have the biggest problems.
Through you, Mr Mayor, it'll be done in the first quarter of the new financial year, so it'll be sometime between July and September, but we'll try and do it as soon as we can in the new financial year.
I appreciate that, Mr Griffin. Thank you very much. That's terrific. And we're working with PTV to try and remove that fencing so that people can get across the disused train line without difficulty. So could I please just thank you and your team, Mr Griffin. Thank you for the great work. And this is all about getting good outcomes for our community. That's a very, very frequently used stretch of footpath. And I look forward to seeing the outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stapleton. Any questions or dissent on the matter? And that is carried. Thank you. Councillor Stapleton, South Gippsland Highway, Cranbourne. No, Multicultural Football Clinic. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I'd like to move the recommendation with a slight variation, please. If I could bring the recommendation up. Oh no. Okay. All right. We've got the heading as a multicultural football clinic, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. But as I discussed with Mr Callum, Mr Paddy, that this is especially for our Sudanese community who are settling in the Cranbourne area and settling en masse, and they're just absolutely wonderful people, but they need lots and lots of support. So on this rare occasion, I'd like some specialised treatment. And could I thank Mr Paddy and his team? I just think what you've come up with here is that...
Excuse me, Councillor Stapleton,
yes.
Are there different words to go in?
Yep, different words, sorry.
No, you haven't got a seconder, that's fine, but put them up when you're ready.
The report be noted. Okay. The report be noted that the event will be referred to, and that, yeah, that'll do, and that the report, sorry, that the event be referred to as the Sudanese Football Clinic, and we'll put Casey Demon's Sudanese Football Clinic. So, yep, Casey Demon's fantastic. And a date to be decided this week. Thank you. Do we need another report to come back to council?
Unless you'd like one, I don't think so.
No, probably we can. Probably the only reason I'd want that is so that we could publicise the event. But I think I could talk to our wonderful journalists and see if they might support publicising that. Yes. So move that in my name.
Second by Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Mr Mayor and fellow councillors, this is an absolutely wonderful opportunity. Initially, what we wanted to have was a football match between the Sudanese and our wonderful police officers, and there were a number of reasons for that, and it's all about relationship building and community development. But our poor police had a basketball match where they had a number of injuries, and I shouldn't laugh because that's not funny, but they have had to make a decision that there's no more tug-of-wars, there's no more basketball matches, and there's no more football matches because they spend too much time off work, and I have to take my hat off to them for going the distance thus far. So to have a football clinic is something very, very exciting, and getting them involved with our Casey Demons VFL club, who are doing so much great work, and the Melbourne Football Club, I will say, is absolutely 100% behind what we're doing in this space. So what I've got to do, we've got 2 dates, one in July and one August, so I'll be leaning towards August. And these 2 dates have been pencilled out in Celeste Twentyman's calendar, so I'll be contacting his CEO tomorrow and confirming what date would suit, and making sure that the Casey Demons have got it on their calendar as well. And then we're going to look forward to a wonderful Sudanese football clinic, and who knows where that can lead into the future. Mr Mayor, you've mentioned yourself there are other opportunities into the future, and wouldn't that be fantastic? So this is about looking after our Sudanese community, making them feel welcome, and also making them feel engaged, and also giving them a sense of what it is to be a part of a community and what it is to have fun at the same time. So just seeking the support of my fellow councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Stubble. Any questions or dissent on the matter? Then that is carried. Thank you for that. We move to item 6.11, Councillor Smith, Arts and Cultural Advisory Committee.
Moving the recommendation on page 32, please, Mr Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Rosario.
I'll just let our esteemed officer get ready, because I'm going to give her a question without notice in a minute, but I've just given her notice. So we'll keep going. I just wanted to bring attention to the council that this is, again, a hard-working advisory committee that have really got their mind on arts matters. Particularly, I'll highlight things like the Winter Arts Festival has now started. We are in winter, unfortunately, not my favourite time of year, but we are in winter, and the launch of the Winter Arts Festival last week was a huge success, and those of you who were able to make it would see how keen this community is on the festival. And particularly, the Open Studio Weekend is something that's been very popular for a number of years, and that's taking place right now over the weekends. But particularly on the weekend of the 11th and 12th, there's an open studio weekend specifically, but there are lots of studios open every weekend in Casey as part of the festival. The launch of the Boyd exhibition was certainly a fantastic thing, and my first question of notice to Ms Collette is, tell us about the visitation. It's been very popular. Give us some facts and figures, fun facts.
Yeah, accurate. Through you, Mr Mayor. Thanks for the question without notice, Councillor Smith.
Pleasure.
The Boyd exhibition is seeing significant visitation across the first opening weeks. The first 2 weeks we had 3,700 people come to see the exhibition in the opening 2 weeks, and we're seeing repeat visitation, which is wonderful. So people coming back to learn more about the Boyd family and the history and connection with Harkaway. We've certainly got some additional activities that are happening in the plaza in the next 2 weeks. We've got a cubby installation that relates to the Boyd exhibition, as well as a family member of the Boyd, Alexander, is coming to, he's a concert pianist who's coming to play in July as well. So we'd encourage everyone to come along to the Boyd exhibition and really have the privilege to be a part of something that hasn't been seen in Australia before. It's the most significant private collection that this country has seen in relation to Boyd works, as well as other Boyd family members as well. So there's a fun fact.
Very good, well done. And can I also point out that there is an accompanying exhibition in the library called Houses Serenity, and that's on, is that for the length of the Boyd's exhibition?
Slightly short.
Yeah, so if you're coming to the Boyd exhibition, and you should, and I've been a couple of times already to see the Boyd exhibition. It does take 2 or 3 visits, I reckon, to take it all in and get the book, read the book, and then come back and have another look at, based on what you read. And I do have to point out that it was, on the day of the opening of the exhibition, it was pointed out that the Grange is actually in Narre Warren North, or was in Narre Warren North, but the family, the Boyd family, used to call it Harkaway. And we believe that was a bit of early snobbery. It was regarded as being better to say you're in Harkaway than you were in Narry North. So we won't buy into that one, but I know if some people in Narry North are a bit upset about that, but hopefully they understand that it's historic, it's not a council-led thing. And the last thing I want to talk about, I want to take advantage of the exhibition that's out, the installation out there at the moment. Can you explain about it, Ms McMahon?
I can. Through you, Mr Mayor, we have an exhibition that's part of the Winter Arts Festival out in our plaza, and it's a beautiful activation for, we want to see families come down at night and not only see our beautiful precinct but also see our beautiful activation, which is an art installation that is some zoo animals that are there for the public to enjoy.
Councillors, you've heard me rabbiting on about the Lantern Festival that we hope to bring from China. That is fantastic out there, but the Lantern Festival we're talking about is like 1,000 times size installation. 3-storey size buildings, the size of 3-storey buildings. Some of them, it's like that exhibition on steroids. So it's, but that's fantastic, and I know lots of people. I've already seen heaps of comments on Facebook about people coming down already or planning to come down. So finally, I just want to talk about Casey's Got Talent. Mr Mayor, you were there that night. It was a near sellout. I think there was only a handful of seats left in the end. It was a huge night, and I'm hoping, I haven't yet, but I'm hoping soon we'll have a figure of how much we're being able to donate to your charity.
Ace Foundation.
Sorry?
The Ace Foundation.
Yes, so hopefully that'll happen at a council meeting in the future. So I commit this report to councillors for endorsement and congratulate the members of the Arts and Culture Advisory Group. And thank you, Mr McGowan. I hope you'll forgive me for questions without notice.
Thank you, Councillor Smith, and thanks, Colette, for all that information. Are there any questions or dissent, councillors, on the matter? That is carried, and that concludes officers' reports withdrawn for discussion. We'll move to consideration of reports of committees. Is there a mover and seconder to receive and note the record of the Assembly of Councillors as listed in the agenda tonight? Moved by Councillor Stapleton, seconded by Councillor Flannery. Any dissent? That is carried. Is there a mover and seconder to receive and note the minutes of the Audit and Ethics Committee held on Thursday the 8th of February 2018? Moved by Councillor Flannery, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Any dissent? That is carried. Are there any petitions that councillors wish to present this evening? None. We'll move on to notices of motion, and the first one is mine, and I'd like to move that in my name. Seconded by Councillor Stapleton. Mr Andrew James and Carmine Legge from Inclusion Melbourne invited to come out and present. They go in and work with people who are isolated in neighbourhoods and get them connected in their neighbourhoods. They've worked in other parts of Melbourne. Because of the number of people in Casey, they're very keen to move the organisation and do some work in Casey. And I said I would put this up that they can come and explain to all councillors and we could ask them questions exactly the detail of how it all works. In my meeting with them over an hour, it sounded very exciting. Their inclusion rate is very high of working with people within their own neighbourhood, getting to know people and getting them into the broader community as well. So I put that to my colleagues. Are there any questions or dissent on the matter? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Councillor Stapleton, rectification of Narry Warren Cranbourne Road.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Look, I believe we have some alternate wording if my fellow councillors would like to have a read of it. Shocking problem with my chair tonight. I'd like to move that in my name.
Seconded by Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Councillors had enough time to read it? Yep, terrific. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor, and this is simply and separate to the announcement that we're acknowledging in this recommendation, and that is of the duplication from Thompson's Road right through to the South Gippsland Highway of the Narry Warren Cranbourne Road. That is fantastic news. I'm so excited about that. But in the meantime, there is a section of road from the railway line as you go up. There's a Big Dipper. As you go up the Big Dipper, all the way down to TAFE, where there is a section of road that you can easily move around traffic that's turning right, but it is corrugated, there are potholes, and it really creates problems. Now, whilst we could say, well, you need to not deviate from there, the inevitable is that, driver behaviour is that when they have to wait a long period of time, they do look for alternatives. All we need is just a workaround to make that area safe. and just to get us through until that road is duplicated. So I think it's pretty well self-explanatory, and we're going to have a report come back once Vic Roads has given their response, and hopefully we can find a satisfactory outcome, even if it's just regular grading and laying of crushed rock. That'd be great, but ideally if we could just seal that area, that would be a great outcome for our residents and for their vehicles.
Thank you. Are there any questions or dissent on the matter? That is carried. Thank you, Councillor Stapleton. The next one on the agenda was down for Councillor Stapleton. I'm actually putting it forward as an alternate recommendation, which is going up in front of you, and I'll just give everyone a moment to read it before I call for a seconder. It's not like the one in the agenda. So I'll call for a seconder now. Councillor Stapleton, thank you very much. As you can see in the recommendation, ladies and gentlemen, the Casey Comets are a very fast-growing soccer club, and a lot of young girls playing soccer as well. There are obviously needs with a growing community. 0 to 4, we've got the #1 population in Australia. Many of those will go into soccer. And I want to thank Councillor Stapleton and Councillor Rowe for their involvement and support with the Casey Comets as well. I know that goes back a long, long way. So a lot of councils have been involved with one of our biggest soccer clubs. There are plans into the future to really develop soccer in Casey. And as you can see here, there are good reasons, expansion of pavilions for growth, spectators, and particularly female pavilions in all sports, which is a real priority of ours at the moment. There is $240 million in a community sport infrastructure fund, and we're asking our officers to work with Sport and Rec to seek the funding to address the issues that the Casey Comets are facing at the moment. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. They need these things for the growth they're experiencing, so I put that to my colleagues. Is there any dissent or questions on the matter? Then that is carried. Thanks very much. We'll move now to urgent business. Are there any items of urgent business? I do have one. It's urgent because there's a timeline on this particular expression of interest we need to make in order to apply for some money for a program involving our diversity and getting people involved in sport in Casey. Seconded by Councillor Stapleton. Any dissent on it being admitted into urgent business? Then it is now admitted. I'll now put up a recommendation in front of you. I'll just give you a moment to read it. And seconded by Councillor Stapleton. Had a meeting today with all our officers in relation to community engagement, mental health. We had a couple of gentlemen come out from the Mental Health Association of Australia and also the Multicultural Commission, urging us to put in an expression of interest to target isolated communities, particularly younger people within the city of Casey. They've done work in other areas of Melbourne where it's been very, very successful. They came out here deliberately today because of the pure number of people in Casey hoping to make an impact in really encouraging us. And I really want to thank the officers for the very short notice. This happened all over the last 48 hours. And so there is a timeline of the end of the month to get in an expression of interest. Our panel chose football and also cricket. We've already done a lot of work with the Victorian cricket. And as you would know, the All Abilities Cricket Carnival is held at Casey Fields. Cricket and football through the Melbourne Football Club, and this is what I was alluding to Councillor Stapleton before, have an opportunity to target groups that are vulnerable, that are disengaged, and our group are working out as we speak those particular groups. It doesn't go on number, it goes upon the people who are most vulnerable and getting them engaged, and the funding we're seeking is $100,000 a year for 3 years. And we're hoping that after the expression goes in, which is the end of this month, then the business case, which we've already got a really good business case for cricket because we've done that before, and we've also got a really good business case half done for football because of our work with the Melbourne Football Club. So I really want to thank the 5 officers who, at very short notice, came and met in my office this morning with these 2 gentlemen who are really urging us and supporting us to see if we can get this money and make a difference in the city of Casey. It's a really good program and supported well by the Mental Health Foundation of Australia and the Multicultural Foundation of Victoria as well. So they've come out here to target us and really encourage us to apply, and they're going to personally go and see the Minister involved to try and get this money and program up running in Casey. So I put that to my colleagues. Any questions or dissent on the matter? And that is carried. Thanks very much. Are there any other items of urgent business, ladies and gentlemen? Then I will close the council meeting. Thank you very much, and we'll have a 5-minute adjournment